Và chúng Messi và chúng tôi sẽ trở lại khi trận đấu tiếp theo của giải đấu này được bắt đầu.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Yes, RNG still undefeated in this tournament. G2 suffering another loss. However, as the guys were just mentioning there, this could be considered a step in the right direction for this squad, at least playing RNG very closely through the mid-game here in this one.
Yep. I think these two teams are actually very similar in the early game. I think that G2 definitely have a more refined lane swap, but they look for very similar things. They either look for pushing down quick structures to open up the map or, match strong lanes. And I thought that they actually had a good 2v2 lane here in the Lucian versus the Lucian Trundle lane, but the level 1 just goes wrong time and time again right now, and I feel it's because CLG has a proactive level 1 and so does RNG, and no other teams are really showing us this at this tournament, and Mata just manufactures first bloods out of nowhere.
We also see how they're playing around Kiki already in the pick and ban, because they get both the Echo and the Trundle. Kiki so far has done very well, kind of with the Trundle into the Echo, but they want him playing Echo overall, so they kind of need to steal that Trundle away, give it to Hybrid as well, so very, very early revealing a lot of champions here, kind of pivoting around Kikis, who has been a weakness so far.
And then when they do all that, he flashes in a straight line and dies.
Unlucky.
To give up so unlucky. But really, this game looked fairly close for a long time, but when you look at the fact that they had the Azir and the Twitch, the team fighting from that team composition was absolutely insane. And G2 wasn't pressuring the 1-3-1 as much as they should have been, because they were going to lose the team fights the whole time.
I want to dispel some myths about this team comp. It's not about the flanks. It's not about Twitch stealthing up and getting the good ambush. He sits there, he delivers. If anyone dives on him, Azir shoves them off. There's a box, there's a lantern to save him as well. If you cannot kill the Twitch, you cannot fight this team comp.
And obviously Lamb's Respite helps you there a lot. And I think that's one of RNG's strengths overall. The team fight, when they know it's coming, when they have all the vision, they're a phenomenal teamfight team overall, especially when it comes to kiting back and then turning at the right moment. So I think that's their strength in the mid game, as opposed to G2 Esports. Throughout the entirety of Europe, yeah, they've had some nice team fights, but they were almost all generated or prompted by 1-3-1. Get the map open, one guy on each side lane, double teleport, set up, make it kind of a pick into a team fight. They've done nothing. The only split push we've seen today was a Lucian in the side lane, and that cost them 2 kills.
We did see a small glimpse of the double TP and the collapse from G2. We have a replay 21 minutes into the game. Whoosh getting a little bit caught out in the top lane. Prep, I'm going to let you walk us through this.
Yeah, so this is generally what G2 needs to do, and they needed to do exactly this in the game. Whoosh could have maybe pathed here to the right, but this is actually RNG trying to make a play, and this is one of those fights. If RNG don't have complete information, they can get a little rash. They can get a little over-eager, and we've seen that time and time again in the LPL as well. Even their series against EDG. But then later on, when these teleports don't happen, they have the overview of the fight. They win all those team fights convincingly.
And this is something we learn at Worlds. I feel like we're going back in time a little bit, but Chinese teams do not respect double teleport play.
Oh, never.
They created it. LGD was one of the first teams that came up with the teleport with the assassin in the mid lane. But for some reason, when it gets to laning, they respect it. 15 to 25 minutes, they just do not set up team fights correctly.
To make it at least an excuse for them, because we're making all these excuses for G2 Esports, there's nobody in the LPL that actually convincingly pulls off 1-3-1 on a consistent basis.
I agree with that 100%.
Yep. Now, Jat, I want to return to the point about the Twitch composition and what Spawn was talking about in terms of you need to have a way to kill the Twitch.
Yes.
We saw a couple teams earlier in the tournament banning that Twitch away from RNG, but is this something now that we've seen it? Every team is either going to have to respect or they're going to have to find more CC and ways to kill him earlier in the draft in order to protect against it?
Yeah, well, if you're going to let the Twitch through, I think you need an assassin pick.
Okay.
Right? Not a Ryze who's a sustained damage mage against an exhaust Azir. Like, that was never going to work in a straight-up team fight. So I think it's definitely something you can play around. His laning phase wasn't super dominant. I love it with Thresh, and I think it's a nice twist, but I think there are ways you can comp around.
All right, so we'd be looking for the LeBlanc to come back in. The Zed was banned against Perk, so there's no chance of that coming in. All right, now as we push forward through the game, returning to the point you made, Jat, about this being close up till a point, and then we saw very, very clearly in team fight scenarios that RNG had the upper hand. So the big team fight 3-0 around the Baron when G2 thought they were the ones who had the advantage here. Let's walk through it.
Yeah, and this was the first of 2 team fights that just kind of crushed them throughout the game. And it all started because G2 was trying to get a pick, and they were prepping a teleport. So it was somewhat similar to the thing that we had just saw. But they burned all their cooldowns on MLXG. And then look at Whoosh on the middle left of your screen. Absolutely just open up onto everyone because no one was even thinking about the Twitch.
But 2 things I want to point out is that was a split-second Kindred ultimate, but they had the brushes warded. I'm talking about RNG. So they're fighting with complete information. Every single time G2 goes forward there's a pink ward in the banana brush, and there's also a ward in the pixel brush. They can never fight with full information in that territory.
Yeah, and more importantly, they always find a way to kite, and then they turn pretty much so in unison. It's very impressive for a team that has, mixed language and communication. They have some key words that work very well for them in teamfights, because they turn at the same time on the right targets. It gets a little harder for them to communicate, I feel, on the map when they have to manage 2 sideways at the same time. That is why I feel they go for a lot of these, group roams in the mid game trying to find a picks, but they are surprisingly consistent at finding them, because a lot of teams that play the same style, they get torn apart on the map.
Now, finally, just to round this out, since RNG is our only remaining 4-0 team, the undefeated team, I want to see if we can poke any holes in the way that they play so far. We did earlier in the broadcast. Yeah, let's do it. Go, poke holes.
All right, I got the biggest one for you. They still do not understand how to tempo lane swap. You see time and time again that they make these small mistakes where they don't actually know where to go. They go to Dragon more often than going towards Rift Herald still. They just make these, against a good European team, from what I've seen, they would get torn apart in a lane swap situation, I feel.
Yeah, they'd never played against Aurelion Sol. I'm going to go back. The game they're actually closest to losing was the CLG game they played at the very start of the tournament. They've played actually 3 relatively close games in their 4-0. And if we were to look at this 4-0 versus 0-4 team, it was a lot closer than that. So I think we're currently playing best of ones. We're going to get the second round robin starting tomorrow. I think there's a very low chance that they end up sweeping it again. I think they're probably going to end up going 5-0 to start, though.
Final thoughts, Crepo?
The biggest hole that can sink their ship is just their mid game. Like the Baron baits, they're not refined. Their entry level, it's as if a team is kind of screaming and still learning it. But massive props to how they mask that weakness with some fantastic, pivots. Let's not call it mistake.
Yeah.
They just pivot and do something else.
They're definitely
and it
stepping
works.
up.
They're making it work.
Yes, that they are. Starting 4-0, they're going to be happy with how they closed the day out. Both Royal and G2 may be done for today, but there's still plenty more on the slate, with Turkey Supermassive taking on the NALCS's Counterlogic Gaming in our next contest here in Shanghai. See you back here in just a few minutes for that one.
His massive Lancer spike goes down to keep everyone alive. Emperor gets in there. He's going to lift it now, but MLXG going to take him down. Really what this Twitch is doing is very best to try and get out. Kickers picks up the kill. Nice play back there from Mata. Box goes down. Loop is dead though as well. As Game is 2 looking fantastic. Whoosh with massive damage. The knock up with the ultimate from Looper onto Perks. And he's going to be falling down. It's a double kill for the Rat. Get that damage from the Twitch. The double comes out. Will it be a triple? He flashes for it. RNG continue their onslaught at MSI. 4-0.
Welcome back to Shanghai, China. You're getting a look at a nighttime skyline here and some inhibitor lights lighting up across the skyline itself. Beautiful evening to have a couple more games of League of Legends as we narrow down to the last 2 games of the day. Next up on the docket is going to be North America's CLG against the LMS's Flash Wolves. Or take that back. I mean Turkey's Supermassive. I was thinking already about Supermassive and wanted to talk about their game against the Flash Wolves being their best showing so far and how closely they played the Flash Wolves at least through the lane phase of the game. Now it's about maybe transitioning into that mid game and being able to team fight properly.
Yeah, and I think that starts in their 2v2 lane. They took Ezreal Braum and they're able to at least trade very, very equally. It's a great diverse lane, I think, Ezreal Braum. They don't really lose super hard. You get to scale up. You have a very clean 2-item spike on Ezreal and you provide a lot of control for the team. That's what a Chu and Dumbledore need to keep doing because they need to be the people that are able to set the tone of these team fights and make sure the game doesn't get out of hand the way that the Flash Wolves game did.
I think they've exceeded expectations a little bit for people that maybe have not watched any of their games because they're going toe-to-toe, at least in the early game. We can still see that they're a newer team that are still building on the fundamentals in the mid-game. Later on, how do we close out a game, maybe how we accelerate a lead. But so far, it's been enjoyable to watch Supermassive, and that, for me at least, is a tiny bit of a surprise. And yeah, I can't wait for them to take down CLG.
And Jat, notable change. Yeah, okay.
Slip
All right,
it
yeah. Seriously, because he knew I was going to hop right back in and push us along. He thought, you actually got me. You didn't get it by Jat. So I do want to talk about, though, notable change. Thaldrin back in for Fab Fabulous in the top lane. And, you know, having seen the 2 Fizz picks, they did perform decently in the lane, but wasn't performing in the team fight areas.
Yeah, and I know during IWCI, they also played Thaldrin the majority of the games, and I think Fab's Fizz was okay, but like Krepo said, they've been sticking with people in the early game. If they want to win the whole game, they need a team-fighting top laner, and I don't think that's Fab Fabulous is the player to do that. I think Thaldrin is.
Also, I think Thaldrin got a little bit shafted the way he got put out. He was very close to killing, what Duke was there, yeah,
yep.
on the Trundle, and then he got very close again, and then he got camped the hell out of him. And then, I mean, any player would have died in that situation. You almost have to see what can the team do. And I was talking to Thaldrin earlier today. It's like, yeah, I told my jungler I need help, but he also told me, like, the second I have to ask for my jungle, it's already too late. So they were a step behind. I'm hoping that he has, like, no bad memories from that play and could just play super confident.
But one thing I will say about the guy is that they put him in to be one of those vocal voices. He was one of the loud voices on Besiktas when they were on a team with Dumbledore. So I'm hoping that a little bit more positive energy in there, a little bit more talk during the mid game will be able to set themselves up for some good team fun.
Now on the other side of the rift, CLG. Now this is a team 2-1 here in the tournament. Could be 3-0, could be 1-2. We've seen, you know, a couple different team fights that could have gone either way, but most notably, Stixxay still a very solid performer for this team, one of the question marks coming in.
Yeah, and they have a very good chance of starting 3-1, which is well above expectations for most people coming in. Krepo just now, and also many people before the tournament, were joking about them being a wildcard region.
Yes.
And they're really
I never said they were a wildcard region.
He just said they'd get beat by a wildcard region.
But I did in my initial predictions, thought they would actually be just above the wildcard region.
Listen,
No.
Spawn and I both put them at 5th for this tournament, so they're definitely exceeding expectations so far. And I think one of the ways they're doing that is they're defying pick and ban expectations in a lot of different ways. Aurelion Sol in the first game, they're picking a lot of diverse team compositions. They're playing the full tanks. They're not trying to do any of these strange things, and they're playing kind of their own meta, but still into the meta instead of just playing the whole 1-3-1 carry top lane. And it is working for them so far, which is the most surprising thing.
Absolutely adore that Aurelion Sol combination with Caitlyn.
I want them to play it more.
The fact that they could actually just set him in the middle lane with the wave, have a lane-wide kind of Aurelion Sol queue that zones people off the tower, and then when they step away, you can put your traps way deeper, get more zone, and get that objective pretty much for free. That combination in itself, I think, is a genius find, and I hope they repeat it more in the tournament.
Is the Aurelion Sol pick specific to Red Side just because it kind of says we don't have to ban the Azir, we're willing to play it into you if you take it?
See, I haven't seen enough of the mid lane matchup. I assume that if you can close on Aurelion Sol on something like a LeBlanc or a Zed, you'll be able to give him some nightmares. However, he does have a slight shove back. I need to see more of it, but I assume it is a control mage counter.
It really reminds me of Keen's Hecarim back in the day with the way you just look to shove out the lane, use all your health and mana, go back to base, and then zoom back.
Right.
E-skill is the one that you use on both of them to get back there quickly.
But from watching the matchup a little bit though,
the entire world basically, so that's why you have to shine. I'm feeling pretty confident. I don't really feel any sort of pressure. Like, I mean, we're the weak team, so it is us. We have nothing to really show. Like, we can just try to play our best games. It's the strong team that has to be kind of scared, you can say, because they need to perform and show they're the best. So I don't really feel any pressure as of right now.